Welcome to Beat Diabetes. I'm Dennis Pollock, and I wanted to take a few minutes to review the previous video that my wife and I made, and then I'll share a few insights you can gain from both the meals and the glucose tests that we did that week. To review the previous video, I determined that we would spend an entire week eating very, very low-carb meals, attempting to see just how low we could get our post-meal glucose spikes to be. By the time we made the video, we had gone 6 days into this challenge, but we still had one more day to go for its conclusion. On each day, we had 2 real meals. For breakfast, we had coffee with butter and cream in it, and then for lunch and dinner, we had the same meal for that day. We ate no keto bread during this week, nor any keto bars or fat bombs or any kind of commercial keto foods at all. We simply ate real food. We normally tested our post-meal scores after our lunch meal. We did not test after dinner, but ate the same foods, and I figured we would get similar results. After our dinner meal, we did not eat a regular meal until lunch of the next day, which made essentially about a 6-hour window of eating. There was no snacking allowed. On Sunday, we ate rotisserie chicken and a salad. On Monday, we ate a hamburger patty and green beans. On Tuesday, we enjoyed tilapia fish and an avocado. Wednesday, we had pork chops and cauliflower covered with cheese and butter sauce. On Thursday, we ate thin sliced beef and a chaffle with cream cheese on it. And Friday, we had a New York strip steak with a salad. And that was the point when we made our video. But on Saturday, we concluded the experiment with salmon and broccoli. This was the outlier for me. I expected a much better glucose reading than I got. My blood sugar read 109 at 1 hour 15 minutes after the meal, which kind of surprised me. Benedicta did much better. She got a 93. I can only guess, but I just wonder if the fact that I spent over 3 hours in the car that day, and then after I got back I took a short nap, and then had the dinner meal, that maybe the lack of physical activity caused my score to be as high as it was. But still, having your glucose hit its peak at 109 is not exactly terrible. When I determined an average of our 7 post-meal glucose scores for the week, Benedicta averaged 97 milligrams per deciliter and I averaged 99. And when I plugged these average glucose scores into a formula, at this rate, if my blood sugar was close to this all day and all night, I should have an A1C of 5.1, and Benedicta would have an A1C of 5.0. But of course, those glucose tests represented our glucose peaks, the highest levels they would normally be. When you get an A1C test, that test is not measuring your post-meal levels, it's measuring your glucose levels throughout each day and night. So in reality, our A1Cs would be somewhat lower than these. I would estimate Benedicta's A1C might have been 4.6 or 4.7, and mine might have been 4.8 to 4.9. So I guess you could say we did pretty good. Here's a question for you. Instead of eating low-carb meals for a week, what if we had eaten high-carb meals? What if we ate pizza and potatoes and had all kinds of desserts and snacks throughout those 7 days? Do you suppose our scores would have been identical to the ones I just shared with you? Well, of course they would not have been identical. Instead of averaging 97, Benedicta would have probably had an average of 140 or so, and I probably would have averaged around 200 or 250 milligrams per deciliter. And this is actually good news because it means we have control over our blood sugar levels. I could eat one set of meals for a week that would give me a projected A1C of 5.0, or I could eat another set of meals that would lead me to an A1C in the 7s or 8s or worse. So it turns out when you get an A1C at your neighborhood lab, you're getting results that did not come mysteriously out of the air. You're getting scores that are a direct result of how you have been eating, but not over the last week, over the last 3 months. And if you do not like those results, Change your eating habits and you will change your A1C score. Let me say that again so that no one will miss it. Change your eating habits and you will change your A1C. It's just that simple. For most type 2 diabetics, it's actually pretty easy to beat and reverse their diabetes. Switch from high-carb meals with lots of high-carb snacks throughout the day to low-carb meals with no snacks at all. Imagine if you had an A1C of 10, which is serious diabetes for sure. You go to the doctor and he informs you that you're in real trouble. But he says to you, cheer up. I have good news. I'm going to prescribe you medication that will cause you to become non-diabetic within 6 months. Take these pills every day, come back in 6 months, and it's highly likely that your A1C will either be in the low 6s or somewhere in the 5s. Wouldn't you be thrilled to hear that? As terrible as it is to know that you have severe diabetes, it is thrilling to learn that simply by taking a certain action, you can go from diabetic to non-diabetic in 6 months. But what I'm talking about is something better than medication. It is a way of eating that is far healthier than how you have been eating, and it can most likely transform your situation from diabetic to non-diabetic. This is a prescription, all right, but not for a med or for insulin, but for a lifestyle change, and it works beautifully. We hear of its efficacy again and again and again. If you were taking a medication that you were sure would whip diabetes, would you be lackadaisical in taking that med? I don't know about you, but if it was me, I would be the most diligent, careful, regular pill taker in Texas. But this is far better than any pill. It has no side effects and costs almost nothing except the price of switching from eating junk to eating healthy foods that people have been eating for thousands of years and that do not spike your blood sugar. It's interesting to compare Benedicta and me when we do these various meals and blood sugar tests. Benedicta represents the non-diabetic. I represent the diabetic. But when we eat low carb, there's just not much difference between our blood sugar scores. Again, she averaged 97 milligrams per deciliter after her low carb meals, and I averaged 99. But some of the high carb tests we've done in the past, she does considerably better than I do. She can handle moderate to higher carb meals pretty well, but I cannot. So the goal for people like me is to mimic people like Benedicta who are not nearly so metabolically compromised as I am. And I can do this. I can get real close to the scores and the A1C of a non-diabetic as long as I eat low-carb, non-glucose spiking meals. And that is exactly what I do. The truth is, when I eat low-carb foods and meals like I normally do, I probably get far better glucose scores than many, maybe even most, non-diabetics who are anywhere close to my age. My spikes are less, my fasting glucose is better, and in many cases my A1C is superior. By eating the way that I do, my glucose levels are far better than many adults who have never been diagnosed with diabetes or even thought about diabetes. And this means that I'm far less likely to experience heart attacks, strokes, neuropathy, blindness, amputations, and dementia than the Dennis Pollock who ate like most Americans eat. It doesn't guarantee that I'll never have these issues, but it makes it less likely, especially if I compare myself with myself, if I had never swapped out my junk diet for a much healthier diet of meats, low-carb vegetables, and high-fat dairy. And that is good news indeed. If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our Uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our Uploads page is in the description.